So today we're starting to learn about the area of a circle. So we already know how to do the circumference of a circle, but when we will need to work out the area, we use this formula here. A for area equals pi times the radius squared. And we can put that into the formula triangle in order to help us rearrange it. So because pi and r squared are touching, we know that in algebra that means timesing. And therefore, pi and r squared need to be touching at the bottom of the formula triangle, and a goes at the top. So if we're trying to find area, we would cover up the a and it would tell us to do pi times r squared. But if we were trying to find the radius, we would have to do a over pi, and then we'd have to do a little bit more work as well, which we'll see in a second. So take this time now to write that down into your notes and pause it and then go on to the next slide. Okay, so in example 1 we've got the area of this circle, so I suggest you pause the video and copy down the example as it is and then play it again to look at the working. So in order to work out the area of this circle, we've got our formula triangle here, so covering up a tells us that we need to do pi times the radius squared. So we first of all write down our formula, a equals pi r squared, and then that's pi times the radius, which is 5, squared, and we know that this is a radius because it comes from the centre of the circle to the circumference. Now we know that 5 squared is 25, so this is the same as 25 pi, and remember we write it like this in terms of pi, just like we did with circumference. And only at this point now do we pick up our calculator and type in 25 pi. Now our calculator will just give us an answer of 25 pi, but if we press the SD button, then it's going to switch it into a decimal for us, which is 78.5, correct to 3 significant figures. So the only thing left to do now is to think about units. So area has to be measured in squared units, and here we have centimetres, so the units here need to be centimetres squared, and that's been done to 3 significant figures. Okay, so for example 2, it's going to be very similar, but you'll notice this time that we've got the diameter that we've been given. So the first thing to do is to get the radius, and the radius is only halfway across. So we have to halve the diameter in order to get that. So 12 divided by 2, which is 6. And then once we have the radius being 6, we can carry on exactly as we did in the example before. So area equals pi r squared, substituting in the 6. 6 squared is 36. And here we are with 36 pi, so we've given our answer in terms of pi, and that gives me 113.1 centimetres squared for the units, and this time I've gone for 1 decimal place. Okay, so in example 3 here, we know that the area of the circle is 50 centimetres squared, and we're asked to find the radius. So this is the other way around to what we've done so far. So if we're trying to find the radius, then we're looking at this part of the formula triangle, which is equal to the area divided by pi. So I'm going to write that out first. The radius squared is equal to the area over pi. So this should be okay so far. We don't know the radius, that stays as radius squared. The area it tells us is 50, and that's over pi. However, we don't want the radius squared, we actually want just the radius. So in order to get rid of the fact that it's squared, the opposite is to do a square root. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do the square root of 50 over pi. And we're going to type this into our calculator now all in one go. So we're going to need to use the square root symbol, then the fraction button, then type in 50 over pi. and that gives me a radius of 3.99 centimetres this time, not centimetres squared because the radius is a length, and that's to 3 significant figures. Okay, so this is the final example. It's quite similar to number 3, so we're given the area of a circle. This time though we are asked to find the diameter, so once we found the radius like we did in example 3, we'll have to double that radius in order to get the diameter. So once again, the radius squared is equal to the area divided by pi. So radius squared is area over pi. So the radius squared is 64 over pi. In order to get the radius by itself, we have to do the opposite of squaring, which is square rooting. So the square root of 60 over pi. And I want to give my final answer to 3 significant figures, which means that because this isn't my final answer, I've got to give it to 1 extra significant figure compared to what I want at the end. So this has got to be to 4 significant figures, which is 4.514, correct to 4 significant figures. I'm then going to do that little bit of extra working to get the diameter, which is 2 times the radius. So now I can either type in 2 times 4.514, or I can do 2 times ants and use the answer button on my calculator to put that exact answer in. And that gives me 9.03 centimetres, correct to 3 significant figures. So here you might want to add in a little note and just say 1 extra SF, significant figure, as not final answer.